Greetings and salutations, people of the world. Today, I wanted to get some stuff off my chest that I've been holding on to that the world needs to hear, quite frankly, in hopes of spreading a little bit of hope and a little more love. And so who am I? I'm nobody, but the information is what's important. I'm basically a medical researcher, epigeneticist, health advocate. I am the founder, co-owner of Reverse Effects. I run the Academy of DNA Diligence, and I also run a personal one-on-one health consultation company called Clearwater Remedies. And today I'm here to talk to you about a very important issue that has taken the world by storm. So I'm going to share some stuff with you that is of utmost importance, but first, a little bit of a disclaimer. This is intended for education and research, data collection. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration, and so on and so forth. I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to tell you what to do. Consult your healthcare provider. This is for education and research, point blank. Okay? Strictly what I would do if I were you scenario based on a little bit of homework that I've been able to do. DNA diligence, baby. So I want to show you guys a little something here. Let me take myself off video real quick here. So when we talk about the COVID-19, see if I can come over this way here. COVID-19, they're saying, is most closely related to SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. Now, this is kind of a work in progress, this PowerPoint here. I'm just going to go through a few slides. I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. I just needed to get some stuff off my chest today. Okay, COVID-19 equals SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. Now, you've probably heard this from many different people, right? Already, doctors, physicians, experts, researchers. So I've been able to track down a few genes that are obviously going to be associated with that. Okay, ACE2, angiotensin converting enzyme 2, is, they're saying, the #1 receptor. In other words, that's what this virus is attaching itself to on the cell surface or the membrane of the cell. Okay, so when we talk about medical terminologies, these are actually searchable in very specific databases, and this is something that I teach through the Academy. And so I'm going to share a little bit of insight with you here shortly. Again, I'm going to try to keep this real short. So you can actually go to the Malacards, which is, well, I'm going to show you guys, and look up exactly and see which primary compounds or drugs that they're listing for severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS. So what they've got listed on SARDS for acute respiratory syndrome in relation to ACE2 is a few different things here, as you can see, listed on the Malacards: danchin, astragalus root, zinc, and turmeric. And when you go outside the scope of these databases and actually looking at research, hardcore research, you also find additional compounds found in nature that also target this ACE2 gene, such as rosmarinic acid, oleanic acid, uracilic acid, which all can be found in a compound that I'm particularly partial to called self-heal, in which the Chinese have stated that literally changes the course of chronic disease. Self-heal, it's called Brunella vulgaris. Beautiful plant, beautiful herb, absolutely gorgeous. Some other stuff they got listed are Chinese skullcap, angiographis. This seems to be the most probably sought after by most healthcare professionals, and resveratrol. And there's some links down here to show you exactly how that plays out. So the pathophysiology, or how this all plays out, right, the end game, in other words, is what they call acute respiratory distress syndrome. It prevents oxygen from getting to the lungs and into the blood. The condition leads to a buildup of fluid in the air sacs, which prevents enough oxygen from passing into the bloodstream. Okay, so one of the related genes that is associated with ARDS is a gene called CCL26. And on that actual gene card, they're straight listing vitamin A and vitamin C as one of the two primary signaling pathways for that gene in relation to ARDS. Okay? So we're not going to go into all these genes right now, but I'm just showing you how important vitamin A and vitamin C are in relation to acute respiratory distress syndrome. Okay? I'm giving you tools for your toolbox. When you're educated and you have a little bit of knowledge behind you and you take action, that's where the power comes from. People are very fearful, understandably so. And what we need to do to quash that fear is just provide a little bit of education behind us in order to quash that fear, guys. And so that's why I'm putting this video. I got to get some stuff off my chest. So some therapeutics for adult respiratory distress syndrome are the following. Okay, pause this video, do whatever you got to do, write this stuff down, take it to the bank. This is what they're actually listing for therapeutics for adult respiratory distress syndrome. Okay. Now, ACE2 isn't the only gene involved. There's other genes involved. We're not going to get into that today. But we've got APN, ACE2, and DPP4 that they're saying is one of the primary receptor sites that this COVID-19 attaches itself to. That's what they're saying. ACE2 obviously being the primary one. Okay. So again, ACE2 is the primary gene, and involved with ACE2 is mineral absorption and NRF2 pathway, is what they're saying. Now, there's an inflammatory mediator associated with ACE2 called bradykinin. Okay, now you've heard that this particular virus induces what's called a dry cough. And this is how it actually works. This inflammatory mediator is induced, thereby causing a dry cough. Bradykinin is what it's called. So I've done a little homework on bradykinin inhibitors, and resveratrol, bromelain, aloe, and green tea were just some of the ones that I found. Okay, you might have heard that pineapple juice helps with the cough. That's why. Okay. Other compounds for ACE2 that are actually listed on the gene cards are a chloride ion. So then we're talking about electrolytes, essentially minerals, mineral absorption, okay? And other compounds that are actually listed on the ACE2 gene card are, again, danchin, ginger, chitosan, which is essentially an N-acetyl glucosamine, soybean, which is really genistein, but a lot of people are partial to soy. So kudzu fits very nicely here because it has a compound in it that is structurally similar to genistein, i.e. soy. And then, of course, nanokinase is a fermented soybean. Extremely beneficial. We've got sea buckthorn, Chinese skullcap, andrographis, astragalus, and olive leaf extract. Guys, these are all tools that you can put in your toolbox. All of them. Okay? So I'm going to stop that slide right there. I'm going to move over to a few different studies that I was able to find. Excuse me. And this is something I just threw out the other day, if you just scroll through my timeline. So again, we already talked about ACE2. Here's some compounds that I was able to find just by cross-referencing danchin and ACE2. I was able to find a book called Herbal Antivirals, Natural Remedies for Emerging and Resistant Viral Infections. Okay? And on here for the ACE2 gene, they're listing danchin, ginkgo, right? And what else do we have? ACE2 also helps to protect the lung injury, and they're listing kudzu once again, right here. So those are a few compounds. Oh, I think I scrolled a little too. Let's backtrack there. So those are the compounds that help mitigate the after effect. So then we see licorice root, Chinese skullcap, and luteolin here, also listed that impact that ACE2 gene to basically help modulate that gene in relation to the COVID-19 virus. Okay. So plants high in lectins, elder, cinnamon, block attachment to various degrees. Okay. My personal favorite, again, this is not medical advice, probably licorice and Chinese skullcap. When you combine those two things together, have huge antiviral, antiretroviral capabilities. And you combine that with a compound like Prunella vulgaris, which has luteolin in it, and you've got a 1-2-3 punch, quite literally. So again, if we go back over to the Malacards over here, excuse me, just close that one down. I told you that the clinical manifestation or pathophysiology, in other words, the end game on this is called ARDS, which leads to low oxygen in the body, in the lungs, in the bloodstream, which is basically more or less called hypoxia. Okay. And so these are the human, this is the human disease database, adult respiratory distress syndrome, end game on COVID-19. This is what actually induces mortality via inflammatory cytokine, depleting oxygen to the lung. Okay, so then down here we can actually scroll and look at, see if I might have passed that up here. This tells you everything you need to know about ARDS. And they're going to list how many drugs and compounds for you. See, if you know where to look, if you don't know where to look, you'll never know where to find it, right? This is in part what I've been teaching through the Academy here. They're listing 414 compounds. Feel free to go to here, Malacards, adult respiratory syndrome, and search them out for yourself, and you'll see exactly what I did. Yeah, I'm not going to spend the time to scroll through all 1,400 or 414 compounds here. This is just a quick little video. Okay. So when we're talking about low oxygen and hypoxia factors, I'm gonna introduce you to a little gene called GLUT3 or SLC2A3, and why it's important when we're talking about oxygen and hypoxia. Okay. These are called the path cards. These are the highways and byways of the entire human genome, where you can quite literally connect the dots. The red nodes are always going to be the most important because they're the first shell interactor protein. Okay, if I'm going fast, excuse me. I've been doing this for a long time, so this is kind of second nature to me at this point. But SLC2A3 is involved with hypoxia-inducible factors. Right? HIF1A, hypoxia inducible factor 1 alpha. That's what it's called. Right here, SLC2A3. Why is that important? If I take you over to the gene cards where they list all 20,000 plus genes, we can look at SLC2A3, or what's known as GLUT3 here, and we can look at SLCs. Basically are transporters, right? They transport things in and out of the cell. This one mediates the uptake of mannose, fucose, or what's known as fucoidian, i.e. bladderwrack, and what? The hydroascorbate or ascorbate acid or vitamin C. This gene is of utmost importance to regulate when you're talking about acute ARDS in relation to COVID-19. Okay. Now, if I take you over to the innate immune system, right, on the path cards, and remember these are the highways and byways, the entire immune, human genome, 20,000 plus genes. These are where things interconnect. We see a gene called CEACAM1. CEACAM1 plays a very important part in your innate and adaptive immune response. Modulation of innate and adaptive immune response. In fact, it's probably the #1 gene in the entire innate immune system, which is primarily how your body reacts to a stealth pathogen, a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, a mycoplasma, anything, really. It's how your body interacts with its environment. Okay. And so I'm not going to get into all this really highly technical jargon here, But just know that this basically modulates the innate and adaptive immune response at the upper echelon of all the genes. Why is this important? Because if you scroll down here and look at the interactive DNA string networks or the pathways, interactive DNA string network, CEACAM1, we click on that link, what do we see? We see SLC2A3 or GLUT3, which is again transporting mannose, fucoidion, and vitamin C. How important do you think that gene is in relation to how your body's reacting to a virus or a pathogen? Okay. If I take you back over this way, we see that CEACAM1 connects to Annex 2. That's a searchable link, folks. Right? This is important. Innate immune system and cardiac conduction. Well, we've already heard that people that are contracting this virus are having heart issues and so on and so forth. Could this be why? I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a researcher here showing you things in a what I would do scenario. But we see here an important paralog of this gene is Annex or Annexin 1. Okay, Annexin 1, what does it do? Plays an important role in the innate immune response as an effector of glucocorticoid-mediated responses and regulator of inflammatory processes. It has an inflammatory activity. So what are they saying about this virus here? They're saying it's not the virus, but the cytokine storm that is the aftermath of the virus, which basically blocks cellular uptake and reuptake of oxygen, right? Caused by inflammation or what they call cytokine storm, okay? So this gene plays an important role in the downregulation of the inflammatory response. It promotes resolution of inflammation and wound healing. Folks, stay with me here. I'm going fast. Let me show you some stuff here. Education conquers all fear. What are they listing for what? Drugs and compounds, 57 of them. These are all drugs, okay? Thanks, but no thanks. How can we get around this? By looking at the mechanism of action that those drugs induce. That's called reverse engineering, folks. So we take that, we cross-reference that. We want natural compounds, natural glucocorticoid receptor agonist plus herb. What's the first hit? That's ginseng, folks. That's a 2011 study. What else can we find? 2015 study, systematic review of plant steroids as potential anti-inflammatory, i.e. glucocorticoid receptor agonists. What do we find here? Boswellia or boswellic acid. We see licorice root. We see ashwagandha listed down here, which is this compound right here, or better known as wifforfin A. These are all highly therapeutic things found in nature that supports your body's ability to initiate the proper immune inflammatory response necessary to deal with an outside invader, albeit not only COVID-19 and various things like that. So how do I know this to be the case? Well, we look at another study here, pathogenesis of severe acute respiratory syndrome, and they're talking about everything I've already known. ACE2, C-type lectin, DC sign, these are all huge genes. DC sign is the gene that falls almost directly under CEACAM1. In other words, DC sign binds CEACAM1, the #1 gene in the entire innate immune system. What does it need? It needs mannose. It requires mannose to bind properly, folks, which is precisely why they list down here C-type lectins such as mannose binding lectin here, okay? Mannose binding lectin. Now, I've thrown a blog together down here where I talk all about it. Mannose receptors, okay? and what's primarily needed in terms of probably a word you may or may not have heard of called glycoimmunology is of utmost importance. Okay, these are all about sugar compounds, right? But more importantly, mannose binding lectin are one, instrumental in innate immunity, right? For pattern recognition. In other words, how your body even searches for a foreign invader to begin with, right? Mannose binding lectin could protect against influenza-related sepsis, right? These are all viral bacterial infections, right? So the complement system, which is part of your adaptive immune system, right? The secondary response initiated by your innate immune system is part of what they call the complement system, right? And there's three pathways to that: the classical, the alternative, and the probably most important in my eyes, the lectin pathway here, i.e. mannose binding lectin. Mannose binding lectin binds to carbohydrates, specifically D-mannose and L-fucose, i.e. fucoidian, right? The clue is in the etymology of the word. In other words, if you cross-reference L-fucose with fucoidian, you'll see L-fucose is derived from fucoidian, i.e. bladder act. But you see just how many things this deals with, right? All different kinds of issues, not just viruses, folks, not just viruses. You can go and read this blog. I'm not going to do it right now, the whole thing, but I just wanted to show you some numbers here, right? Complement deficiency is an immunodeficiency of absent and suboptimal functioning of one of the complement system proteins. Because there are redundancies in the immune system, many complement disorders are never diagnosed. Some studies estimated that less than 10% are identified. What does that mean? 90% potentially are dealing with a complement deficiency and may not even have a clue about it, right? So mannose binding lectin helps initiate complement activation. And so they have found that malfunction of mannose binding lectin affects up to 50% of individuals in some populations. That is a huge number. They found in the study more than 2/3 of patients with mycoplasma infection had mannose binding lectin deficiency. So what am I saying? In summary, 50% of individuals in some populations are affected by mannose binding lectin deficiency, which leads to a complement deficiency to which only 10% are identified. In other words, here it is, folks. Here's the number. In other words, up to 90% of affected individuals have a propensity towards a malfunctioning immune system through mannose binding lectin deficiency and complement deficiency. It's no wonder why nobody can mount a proper immune system defense, folks. And I'm just going to leave it right there. Have a blessed day. Go out, change the world, share this video far and wide. This information needs to get out to the world. This is only a snippet, a small percentage of the research I have in my back pocket right now. But this is a huge chunk of it. This is a big piece of it, in other words. So I hope you have a blessed day. God bless you guys, and keep your heads up. This too shall pass.